Welcome to Martini Time. So I don't spill it. I just want to show you my snake martini glass. Isn't that a great one? My Kundalini glass. So let's see if we can raise our Kundalini a little bit. The name of this talk is The Call of the Buddha. I just finished reading Joseph Conrad's The Heart of Darkness, and it's a free Kindle or ebook. And I read that because I just watched The Apocalypse Now, which was based on Joseph Conrad's Heart of the Darkness. And what they both have in common is that the hero must go upstream to go beyond civilization, beyond logic. He's got to go beyond logic and rationality to the source of the river, where in both movie and book, this character named Kurtz has kind of like gone AWOL from civilization. He's kind of like beyond the pale. He's gone farther than anyone else has. And so he's a great attraction, showing up Apocalypse Now. The hero has to go up and kill him. But in the Heart of Darkness, he has to go there and bring him back. In the Heart of Darkness, it's in Africa, and it's a trading center that's beyond all the other trading centers. So anyway, what I wanted to, how I'm connecting dots is with the call of the Buddha, is that the call of the Buddha is to go upstream, beyond, outside of the pale of culture, outside of the boundaries of language and our ego. So this is the call of the wild. So a lot of our movies, a lot of our metaphors, a lot of our myths are about this call. Joseph Campbell writes about it as the call to adventure, for the hero's journey. So we all hear this call. It's the call to go beyond ourselves, to transcend ourselves. And it happens in, the drug addiction, the call of seduction, the call to buy a product. This call is pimped out, or is prostituted by taken, is prostituted for all kinds of reasons, but it's fundamentally a spiritual call. So it's a spiritual call that has been incorporated in culture, civilization, economy, society, for its own uses. So you never really get out of the tape loop of the social ego when the call is made by society for you to buy something or for you to get addicted to something. But the point is that there is a genuine call. So everything that calls us out of our hometown, that calls us out of our status quo, that calls us out of our Groundhog Day, that's a good one, that calls us out of our Groundhog Day, is the Buddha call. Or if you want to put it, it's the Christ call. Same call. But it doesn't really have any name when you get upstream of language. So if you really go upstream, you're even going upstream of time. This time, you see, is what we live in our social ego. Now, our social ego is your identity. Like me, Ed Conley. Everybody knows Ed Conley. I have a history. Hope I have a little future left. Everybody knows my name, you see. And that naming holds me in place. And we all feel that sense of nobody really. So everybody knows your name. They know what you did. They know who you are. They know what to expect when they meet you. They know your idiosyncrasies, your patterns, your habits. All of that. Lovable and unlovable, you see. Okay, that's your name, right? And that's the known. That's the known. We know who we are. And even if we're living in hell, we would rather leave that than go upstream. We'd rather live in hell than go upstream where there's no name. You see, no name is up there. So when you go upstream of the name, there's no name. It's the formless, it's the nameless. And so this is kind of like what these two movies are about, in the sense, metaphorically, I think, that makes it universal for me, is that this call is to transcendence. You see, there's a lot, man is a search for meaning and all that. Well, when the search for meaning, when meaning is given to you by culture, it's circular. It's the dragon eating its tail. It's circular, The meaning is created by culture, so you're conditioned to and dependent upon culture for the meaning, whether it's fame or wealth, you see, or whatever your gives you meaning. It's interconnected with culture. But the call I'm talking about, the call of the Buddha, is beyond culture. And I was reading in, where's my book? Of course, now this is backwards. It's Creating Consciousness by Albert Lowe. I read Albert Lowe's. As you can see a little mark. So one time I read the book, I used pink markers. Another time I read it, I used blue markers. And then when I look in the book, it's got blue, pink, yellow highlights. And now I'm reading it again. So what I do, you see, is that when I find a teaching that I resonate with, I keep reading it. And I keep marking it. And I have a little journal and I write things down. I connect dots. So this, the call of the Buddha, basically, is a call to connect dots that are not being connected by anybody else, because you're connecting them to your own life, you see. Your own life is unique, and nobody knows your life like you. So if you want to hear the call of transcendence, you have to be interested in connecting the dots and creating your map, you see. A map is created by connecting dots. So if you want a map to go upstream, to go beyond the pale, to go beyond the known of who you are, if you want to do that, you have to create your own map. So how do you do that, you see? Well, you find the teachings of transcendence, and you begin to read them, take notes, as if you were doing a research paper, as if you were looking for buried treasure. And you're reading these teachings for the clues. You want the clues, you see. You're a detective. You're a navigator. You're an explorer. So you want to go where you haven't been before, which is where nobody's been before. See, so if you want to go where you have not been before, and your nature, in Buddha, it's called your Buddha nature, your Christ nature, is the transcendence. You see, then you have to transcend who you are. And you can't do that without a map. But the map doesn't exist. No one's written it because you haven't existed before. Your life has never existed before. So how can anybody else write a map for you? If you take somebody else's map, you're just living in their map. And you're going to end up like in the desert following your own footsteps. So you make your map It's a living map. It's not a static, a written map. It's not been written down. It's not in scriptures. You have to create it. And you create it by connecting the dots. So you read according to your curiosity, towards your resonance. You read what calls you. You read where you feel the call. I can take, I can take these books of my resonating teachings. I say that, the teachings that resonate with me. And over time, I've gone through many teachings. So when you are in resonance, when you're resonating with a teaching, your heart responds. And so you feel the call. So the call is a feeling. It's mysterious. It's seductive. And it pulls you. I was reading in Creating Evolution, Creating Consciousness, and Albert Lowe talks about the evolution of consciousness, and he's very clear in analyzing or deconstructing the logic of our world that was born with Newton and Bacon and Descartes, and all of the teachers, the thinkers of the Enlightenment, when the Middle Ages collapsed and created the modern world that we now live in, which is now collapsing, by the way. The modern Newtonian world, that is our common sense world, is collapsing. And one of the things about the common sense world that looks at the world as a machine is cause and effect. So in this world, we feel we're being created by the past. The past is creating us. I'm the effect by the cause. What's the cause? Well, the cause is in the past, you see. But in the evolution of consciousness, in the world where we are called, the future pulls us. And this is a different understanding of what moves us, evolution. Do I evolve because I'm caused, I'm determined, or do I evolve because I'm pulled? Now, what am I being pulled by, you see? I'm being pulled by the greater whole, or the unity. So consciousness evolves towards unity, but it creates unity, because unity is always being created in nature. So we're being called to be a creator. We're being called to create our consciousness and the world we are conscious of, you see. So if we don't hear that call, we're living in a created world. We are just the created. We feel like we're born into it, and when we die, we leave, it'll still be there. This created world that we perceive and find so confusing and absurd at times, but it's a world that everyone agrees exists. But the call we're talking about here, the call of the Buddha, the call of the Christ, is to transcend that and to break free of the gravity of the social ego and the culture of language. You see, we live in a culture of language. Everything has a name. Everything has logic. Everything that is real is clear and distinct. There's no place for ambiguity in this world. It drives us crazy. So we are that's like a placemat, a gravity that pulls us and holds us. And I'm sure a lot of us feel the conflict between being pulled back into your old identity and being called to a new identity, a new way, you see. So we're constantly like this taffy being pulled by our known, by our identity, by the family, by our politics and religion and all that, our group, our gang or whatever calls us and keeps us back, you see. But at the same time, there's something pulling us, stretching us, asking us to leave, to take the risk, to adventure, to step beyond the pale, to step off the cliff. And it gets confused. Is that death calling me or life? I don't know. They both seem the same, so people get called by death. You know, maybe that's what suicide is. They're called by death. Or is it life? So death and life, really, when you feel this pull, is the same, basically. It's the unknown. It doesn't have a name. Life and death doesn't have a name. It's beyond the pale. It's beyond the culture, the known. It's beyond what you know, who you are, and where people know your name. It's beyond Cheers. You see, it's beyond where everybody knows your name. Who wants to go there? Who wants to live where nobody knows your name? There was a song about that, right, in the desert, you know, where nobody knows your name. So I think that's what we're dealing with here in our human nature, in the mystery of our human nature. It's the one that is two. That's a mystery. How can one be two? You see. So the one is calling us from our two-ness. What is our two-ness? Me and the world. Me and it. Me and you. Me and whatever. Me and all the names and forms. You see, there's me, subjective, I, me, and all this it's, you see. That's two. But what am I? I'm being called by the one. The one calls me. And we call that the Buddha or the Christ or the self or whatever. Doesn't make any difference. That's just another name, you see. But the call is felt by all of us, you see. And so if we want to turn and answer that call, the way is by the heart. And like I said, the way is to find a teaching that you resonate with from the heart, not intellectual information so you can, you know, be an expert. This is a different calling, not to be an expert, and it's difficult to know the difference between the two. So it's a calling that is mysterious. So you really have to, like I said, you begin to take your teachings, it's called the Dharma, in whatever form that resonates with you, and you begin to study it for dots, for connection, for dots that connect to your life. You have to find the dots in the teachings that connect to your life, your everyday experience. So you're connecting everyday mind. Oh yes, that makes sense, you see. So the teachings then begin to expand and liberate your everyday world, which is the known, which is the everyday world of your culture and society and friends and all of that, you see. That placemat that keeps you contained. So you begin to connect the dots with that, you see, with your, when I was feeling that, or when I was doing that, this kind of reflects on that. So the contraction of your everyday self, you see, begins to be expanded by the teaching because of your intention to connect the dots. So there has to be this intention to connect the dots for your everyday life to the teachings, and gradually, the pull and the gravity of the known begins to weaken. And the pain of being contracted into a name and into a placemat begins to weaken, you see. And so then you begin to connect more dots. And that's the evolution of your consciousness. It's the evolution that's going upstream. And how far you go is up to you. But once you feel the pull of the undercurrent of the unknown, you can't go back. Thanks for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.